Good evening. This is Ronald Allen, managing change through effective communications. Sometimes we use the phrase strategic communications. And the reason is effective denotes to me that you're actually achieving what you set out to achieve through a series of progressive tactical moves, thinking, relationships, networking. They are tactical to effectively the desired outcome that you're looking for, that you're actually able to achieve your outcomes. So I thought about what seems to be somewhat of a cheesy title, which is Achieving Your Greatness. Now that's going to be a little, shall I say, deceptive, my title, Achieving Your Greatness. Because in most cases, an individual will then begin to tell you how you should go about their process in achieving your greatness. Which has always been kind of funny for me to hear someone talk about a process and then begin to tell you how they achieved it, and through your studying their process and understanding what they went through, you can assimilate. I'll bet when someone says we're going to empower you, well, to me, that means I can also take away the power. So let's kind of see where this goes, how we can develop it, and as usual, most importantly, how it's interpreted for you, right? Based on your life, your experiences, the meaning that you have developed. People in your lives have provided you a platform upon which you live your life. So first off, one of the things that I've noticed, and you might have also seen certainly in my live chats, is that I love this environment out here. This is kind of my church, if I can use that term, right? This is my church, right? I'm out here. I have to drive out here, basically. I could be not so lazy and walk. It's about 4 miles from where I live, maybe 3 miles. And yet to come all the way out here across these lakes, and these are wild preserved lakes, and as you can see the birds hovering over, absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And so I use this, number one, as what I call my safe haven, right? It's a safe haven for me. It's a place where I can think. It's a place where I can reflect. A question then to you. Do you have a place that you've carved out, you have found? Is it a cave? Maybe you live on a mountainside or a mountain region. I know when my wife goes out to California, there are certain areas that she goes to, and Sharon and her children have shown that these are absolutely beautiful, beautiful mountain ranges, and you can literally get lost. Do you prefer more of an aquatic environment? Parts of the world where you can go into cavernous reserves where the current has eroded the land, and you can just sit there quietly and just meditate. Do you go up into your attic? Your attic is a very good place. Notwithstanding, what is it? Flowers in the Attic? That movie? The point is, when we talk about achieving our greatness, I believe we need to start out with a safe place. A place that we can honestly reflect, take some time out, even when things, and especially when things are chaotic. If the only thing we can do is having to always move and do things, physically do things, I think we're missing a great perspective of what the brain needs, what your mind requires, and I'm quite sure most of us, and just through a quick tally here, through a star or maybe a thumbs up, Express to me whether you wish you could have some time out. Now, you might say, well, Ron, that's great for your perspective, and it sounds like you're telling us what to do, what you do, which is, remember, what I started with. Well, let's take a look. Some of the greatest philosophers in the world always talk about quiet time. Yoga, even Pilates. Many leaders, when they're faced with incredible odds, difficult odds, they'll take time away from the drama. Okay? So I looked at this, and I keep reading about multiple personalities, autobiographies, and I'm looking for little kernels of wisdom that I can apply to my world, to the challenges that I'm going through. So that's a kind of a long way around saying, identify a quiet space, whatever that means for you. And every now and then, go there. Try to make it regular. Even if you miss one or two, come back. Because it's like an anchoring. It's like a buoy. It tells you that this is where you can do some serious thinking or no thinking. The irony behind that is the mind is constantly adjusting, constantly figuring out. And if we can give it some silence, we talk about the silence within the notes, the pause in the presentation. That's when we get to listen and hear what we're really saying. Another perspective I wanted to share with you today about achieving your greatness is understanding the limitations of those that taught you. The fear that they may exhibit in their way of thinking. So how does that mean? How does that translate into your own greatness? Well, once again, look around your own life, look at your own experiences, and say, if someone expressed to you a limitation or a advantage that you should take, where did that perspective come from? Because for me to absorb it, for me to say, yes, I can do this, there has to be a setup, a precursor to say, okay, yeah, this sounds like it makes sense. Many times, and you'll see this in parenting, parents will impose on children what they themselves could not or would have liked to have achieved. That can be pro and con. The pro to me is that they want the child to excel. The con is, does it jive? Does it make sense? Is it the right timing for that child at their development? And when I say child, at any stage that the child is still under the roof of the parent. Right? So that to me is kind of part of the definition of being a child, still under the roof of the parent. Even if you come back and you're successful in life, you're still under the roof of the parent. So that's a second perspective I want to share with you in terms of, again, achieving your greatness. A lot of these are counter perspectives to what we typically talk about. Example, went up to Columbia College and had a great day about a month ago now. Wow, time flies. And I was able to engage with some graduates in their coaching certification. And it's a year long, it's a very intense, very engaging coaching course, which ends with certification. The questions, what I walked away with, again, we talk about achieving your greatness, is being aware and listening carefully to what the other person and the process they took me down. The steps, right? We know that we want to go through college. We know that we want to get a certification. We know that when we get that designation, certain things should, emphasis on the should, happen. What I walked away with were actionable steps that I identified, that I could implement, that I had to stretch a little bit. I had to use a little resourcefulness. And within a short period of time, it's now approximately 30 days, I have moved from where I was closer to where I want to be and sustainable. It's not just achieving it, it's sustaining it. So once again, we turn that perspective on our own lives, on our own situation, where we are, where we'd like to be, what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to maintain. A lot of times, I believe, certainly from the studying that I'm doing in this area of personal and professional development, strategic interventions, servant leadership, sustainability is absolutely crucial. So my discussion, my sharing with you tonight is, can you sustain what you've achieved? Is it that you've got the degree, the certificate, the diploma, the recognition, the ribbon, and then you fall back to a laissez-faire, whatever, well, I've got it and life should deliver, or people should recognize me? See, the irony is, these guys up here, if you're seeing them, they keep seeking life. Now, some of you might say, oh, wow, Ron, where are you going with this? Well, life is the ultimate, right? To sustain life, to engage in life, to procreate, to be engaged, to be involved. If we go after things and think that's the end, we've missed the point. I'll give you an example. Had a young lady who had graduated, got her master's, and she was at a county fair. At the county fair, she expressed to us, we had engaged her, and she said, well, you know, I've got my master's, the economy is very bad, and I need to know what else I can do. I'm going to stay home, and I'm going to see if I can get another degree. And I said, well, you can't. I said, well, that's great, but what did you learn from all of this? I said, what did you really learn from getting your existing degree? And she said, well, she felt that, I'm sorry, some cars are going by, so we got some people here, our car's in the way. The point was, she had learnt, she got her master's degree. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. She got her master's degree. She then was concerned because of the economy. She couldn't find a job. She couldn't find a opportunity to apply her trade, her knowledge. Well, I asked her, I said, well, what was the process? What is the process that you've learned from that? And she was saying, well, she wanted to get into agriculture, which was unfortunately something she couldn't do. And then she said, well, what I'll do is I'll stay home with my parents, and she'll stay home with her parents and wait for the economy to change. Well, the economy wasn't going to change too quickly. And what actually occurred with her was, we said, well, what is the process that you've learned? What are the skills that you've learned that you can use in your trade? And she really wasn't sure. She said, well, I need a job. I said, well, could you be a teacher? Could you be in research? Could you teach other younger members, maybe some internships? Maybe, or perhaps you could do something in another field, complementary, right? Maybe you can work with interns. My point here is, when we learn something, do we learn it for the certificate, or do we learn it to apply it in the world, right? So, example, if you're a lawyer, you can then do research, you can do non-profit, you can, depending on, of course, what discipline in law you're studying and you've learnt, you can then practice law itself, you can then teach it, you can do research, right? You can go in and establish ombudsman or advocacy for those who are less fortunate, again, given the discipline that you have. I think part of the challenge with a lot of what we do, the intent of what we do, or the outcome that we're seeking, is that we think it's an end, it's a goal, and that's all we walk away with. Instead of saying, well, how else can I apply this knowledge, and in what other areas? As you know, technology has pushed us to incredible areas in general, and yet they are only new because we are not familiar with them. We haven't seen the application in these particular areas until recently. An example would be the AIDS virus, right, in science. At one time, it was certainly scorned on that you would have the disease. Where did it come from? Or that it was associated with only one group of people. Well, we now know today that they're taking aspects of that virus and are applying it to cancer and other ailments. So it's a matter of discovery. What you learn should be, how else can I apply it? Where else can I use it? And how can we then elevate or benefit mankind? So the openness, that's really, I guess, where I'm coming from on that. And I apologize with that little distraction. Very rarely do I get two cars coming up on my own car to distract me. But anyway, I guess that's part of managing change, right? So, the discussion, achieving your greatness. Identify what you've learned. What are you doing with it? Identifying where you learned the information from and understand certain limitations that those instructors, teachers, parents, loved ones have in sharing their limitations, their perspective which has limitations. Understanding your own perspective, your own needs, and then saying, how can I challenge that? What is it about my past? Where am I going to project forward? Because obviously, as you know, we cannot change our past. So that the journey then becomes one of discovery. The journey then becomes one of exploration. It's very much like a diet. Here's an example. Nobody wants to go on a diet. Nobody really wants to lose weight. On the other hand, what if you could be a size that gave you energy? What if you could be in condition that allowed you to perform at your peak? And when I say perform, not in the exercise room. I don't work out. I do a little stretching in the mornings. But when I mean peak, in other words, I can go 20 hours day in and day out. I can sometimes do 24 hours. What does that do for me as what does it do for you? A lot of times you'll see the motivational tapes and people are, can I use that knowledge for? How can I apply that information? And I have a pretty decent skill, a good skill, I will say, at being able to communicate with people on very diverse subjects. So where can that take you? What can that do for you to open up opportunities? Because what's beautiful is, as we get older, the landscape, the cultures, the people that now have access to the marketplace expand. You're no longer just speaking to the group of people and the mindset that they had that hold you to one belief. What will be very exciting, and I'm going to finish up with this, I think what will be very exciting in the next couple of years is the input from women across all industries, across all disciplines of study, and how they apply it to everyday things that we now do in different ways. Take that thought, and instead of thinking of yourself as you do right now in a cylindrical manner, expand like a spider web or a octopus. How many ways can you apply your knowledge? With what groups can you apply your knowledge? And so open yourself up to ideas and opportunities that right now don't exist. We love to talk about technology as if it's the breakthrough science. Our mind is the ultimate technology. Use it creatively, use it aggressively, and challenge yourself based on what you don't know. There's one for you. Challenge yourself on what you don't know in the area of interest that you have a passion for. This is Ronald Allen, managing change today in my beautiful hacienda, White Bogs Blueberry Farm. You know where to find me.